Aloha. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about detecting ranges with branches, except this time, unlike last time, we're not going to be doing pseudocode. We're going to take the pseudocode that we've written, and we're going to go ahead and make some actual Python code. So in doing so, we're going to use some relational operators here. We're going to use the less than, greater than, less than or equal, and the greater than or equal signs. So we're going to be detecting ranges with the if-else statements. So we're going to take the code that the pseudocode that we created before, and I've listed it here in our VS Code editor, which I will be sharing in just a second. So let's go into the code editor. So I've got the code listed here from our last lesson, and you can see that the objectives were to take a number and convert it into a letter grade. So A is 90 to 100, B is 80 to 89, C is 70 to 79, D is 60 to 69, and F is 0 to 59. So our pseudocode that we had, we set it up that if our number grade is less than 60, letter grade is equal to F. So remember, and all these, I believe, we set up as else ifs as well. So that's nothing to worry about here, but just for the sake of being a perfectionist, let's go ahead and say else if for those. So we're looking at this, we're starting at the bottom up, and we were using the less than symbol. So let's go ahead and turn this into Python code. So we're going to start out over here. We're going to say number grade equals 63. This gives us some kind of a thing to test with. And we're going to start our letter grade out with nothing. And the reason we're going to do this is we can see that when we get through all of our ifs, we can do a printout and make sure that we have an actual value here. If we have nothing, then we've got a mistake. So when we print this out in the end, we're going to look at that result, and hopefully it'll result with the the correct range that we were doing. So we're looking at this, and we start out with this being empty. So then we start out, we say, okay, if our number grade is less than 60, letter grade is going to be an F. Then we go next, elif, because elif is the else if in Python. Elif, number grade is less than 70, letter grade equals D. So we go through all these all the way down, and then we get to the catch-all at the end. It's else, letter grade equals A. So we're going to run this program and see what we get. So for 63, we expect that the grade is going to be over here as a D, correct? So we will go ahead and run the program real quick. And sure enough, we have a D. So let's go ahead and choose something that's in the C range. Let's try a 73 and see what happens here. So we're going to run it, and sure enough, we've got a C. So we're a little bit better than that. Let's say it's an 83, or let's make it 85 or 86. So we're going to go ahead and run that. And when we run it, we should get, let's scroll down. Sure enough, we got a B, but we're really the best students there are out there. So we've got 100. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what that gets us. So if we go, that gets us the A. So there's one case that we haven't tested yet, and that's all the way down at the bottom. So let's go with a 44, and let's run the test again. And we've got an F as we expected. So we went through everything here, and it handled it gracefully. So, and if we look at let's look at the edge cases. So let's say it's 60, or let's say it's 70. And see what it gives us. So we put in 70 here, and then we run it again, we get the value of C. So C, is it less than 70? No. So it's not going to be D, it's going to be in that range between 70 and 79. So it's going to be a C. So that's correct. So it's, when you're testing your programs in general, it's nice to test the cases where it's solidly in one or the other, but then you want to get those edge cases when you're right up against that point where you're going into the next range. So that is the first part. But as we talked about before, you can do this the other way too. You can do, instead of starting at the low numbers and going high, you can start high and go low. You're just going to have to end up flipping your operator symbol there, your relational operator. So now we're going to do it in the opposite direction. And let me go ahead and comment out this code. And I've said this before, but it's a really nice feature inside of VS Code that if you want to go ahead and you want to comment out your code, hold on the Mac, hold down the command key and hit the /, and it comments everything out. It also does the opposite. So if you go in, you find code that you want to comment, you do the same thing, and it knows to take your comments off. So if we go back up to here, let's say, okay, I can tell that this is where the code starts and all the way down to here. So if I go in command // it undoes it. So it's beautifully back out there where I can use it. So anyhow, so we're going to be going about this the opposite way. We're going to be looking at the high numbers first. So in order to do this, I mentioned this in the last video, we're going to be looking at the greater than or equal to, so that we can use 90 instead of, saying greater than and using like 89 or something like that. So we're going to go with the greater than or equal sign here. So we start out number grade equals 91. The first test that we're going to do for the A range, we're going to say that if the number grade is greater than or equal to 90, that our letter grade is an A. So if we get to the next part in the else, we know that it wasn't anything above 90. So, so we test it to say, hey, is it greater than or equal to 80 then, to get that next range, that 80 to 89 range. So if it is, then letter grade is B. So we do that successively for this, for the C's and the D's. Then we have the catch-all at the end. So the catch-all at the end says, otherwise, hey, your letter grade is an F. So after we set the letter grade, we're going to go ahead and print it down here below. So if we have a 91, we expect to have an A. So we go ahead and we run our program, and sure enough, we have an A. So let's go up there and change it down 10 and see if we get a B. So we go over here and we hit the run, and sure enough, we have a B. So if we test 71 and then we hit the run, we should have a C. And if we look at 61, where we should have a D. And as expected, if we have 51, sorry, but that is an F. It's not for fabulous. So anyways, that shows us that. Let's look at an edge case just for the heck of it. So let's take a look at 80. So if it's 80, then it should be falling into the B category. So let's go ahead and run that and just make sure. So we scroll down, and sure enough, there we go. It's a B. So we tested our, the well within the range, and then we also tested an edge case over there at 80, just to, make sure that that equal, the greater than or equal sign was really tested out. So that is the, the pseudocode that we had in the last chapter. So there's one other thing that I want to talk about that is kind of a neat thing that I see in Python that you don't see in other places so much, but it's the idea of operator chaining. And operator chaining is when you take your conditionals, your relational operators, like less than or equal, greater than or equal to. You can combine them together, so you can make compound things here. So instead of doing A is a statement like you'd say A is less than B and B is less than C, you can simply use A is less than B is less than C. And the result of this is a Boolean, and it gives you the true or false result. So let me go up here like we did earlier. I'm gonna go ahead and select all of this, and I'm gonna comment it out so that we're not gonna have a lot of stuff coming up. So we're gonna go in here to this code example that I've written, and we're going to uncomment using the same command /. So to test this idea out, I'm putting in number grade equals 22, letter grade equals blank. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to test out the ranges. So the first range we're going to test is if 0 is less than or equal to the number grade is less than 60. And if that's the case, then it's an F. So then the next one is if number grade, and I like to read it from the center. So if number grade is less than if 60 is less than or equal to number grade and less than 70, then we're going to go letter grade equals D. So then, on the next one, it's going to be if number grade is greater than or equal to 70 and less than 80, then the letter grade is going to be C. then we go down and we hit B, and then the catch-all at the end, we don't have to have any kind of a chained operator there. It's just going to be letter grade equals A. Then we can print out the result. So if we run this code, we will get, oh, hold on, let's clear the screen, the output down here. If we run it, we get an F because the number grade is 22, and that's pretty darn bad. So let's choose something in the 70s. Let's say 77. So if we've got 77 here and we run it, we get a C. So that puts us where we expect it to be. So it's between 70 and 80. So now let's say that's a 99. So if it's a 99, then we get an A. And that's what we expect. And if you get anything else above that, like, 5,345, and then you run that, you should expect that you're still in the A territory. So that's nice to know. But now let's test an edge, it's a little bit beyond an edge case. So up here, we're going from infinity basically at the high end. At the low end, we're looking at number grade being greater than or equal to 0. So what's going to happen if we put in a -1 here, just to test that out? What do you think would happen? Well, looking at it, it is probably going to have a very, very funny result. So if you have a -1 for a score, you still have an A. Why is that? Well, it wasn't in this range up here, even though it was on the bottom side of that range. We're only looking at 0 to 60. So it builds up and up. And because it was above 89, you're going to get A as your result. So sometimes you may see something, you may expect a different result and get a surprise at the end. So keep this kind of thing in mind when you're building up something, especially when you're testing ranges. Make sure that you have robust code. Make sure that it's going to, if you do have something, a variable that runs through it that is, not exactly in the range that you would expect a number to be, test those cases too, just to see if that result is acceptable. Because here, putting in -1, you kind of think that maybe that shouldn't be an A after all. So you may want to, instead of doing a catch-all at the end, have the A defined as the 90 to 100. And then, you could have an else statement after that that says else letter grade equals undetermined or something like that. That would be a little bit safer. But by putting in numbers like this and testing not just the things that fall right into the ranges, but also hitting that that edge case, and then going for something a little bit on the ridiculous side, you get a full testing of your code, so you won't have surprises later on once it goes into production. So that is the end of this section, and we'll have another section coming up real soon. So stay tuned.